All right. So we're going to go into something called point slope form. So before point slope form, we were doing slope intercept form, and slope intercept form was y equals mx plus b. Okay. Now point slope form. So if you notice, this one is a slope, and then this is a y-intercept. So that's why this one was called slope-intercept form. So if we have point slope form, well, what do you think for point slope form we're going to need? Okay, well, obviously the slope and a point. So here it says point slope form um, is where m is a slope and x1, y1 is any point on the line. So instead of them giving you the y-intercept, they're going to give us a point. So here it says use a graph below to find the equation of the lines in slope-intercept form and point slope form. So here, let's go ahead and see. Now we can't figure out what the y-intercept is. It's really hard to tell. It looks like it's counting by 4. So between 0 and 4, that looks like it's about 3, but we're not 100% sure. What we could be 100% sure about is where it crosses right here. So it crosses our x-axis at -2, 0. Okay. There's another point here. It doesn't matter which point you pick to be your point on your point slope form. But let's go ahead and count the slope. So remember, it's counting by 4. So it'll be 4, 8. So that is 8. And then our x-axis counting by 2. So 2, 4, 6. Okay, it is a positive slope. So my slope is 8 over 6, which will reduce to 4 over 3. Okay. So it says, now write the equation in point slope form using your point and the slope formula. Okay. So if I look here, here's my point slope form. It's going to be y minus y1. So all we're going to do is take our points and we're going to plug them into this formula. Okay, so I'm going to write down the point slope form real quick. So it's y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And so here, if we look, m stands for our slope. So instead of m, I'm going to go ahead and put our slope, which we said was 4 over 3. Okay. The parts that stay the same is going to be the x and the y. Those we don't plug in. Okay, so I'm just going to put here y. And then I'm going to go ahead and plug in my point. So my y value and my x value, this is my x1 and this is my y1. So my y1 is 0, my x1 is -2. Okay, now we end up with a double negative here. Now remember, when you do end up with two minuses, it turns into a plus sign. Okay, so it says now distribute and solve the equation above for y. So let's go ahead and distribute this 4 over 3 to each one. Y minus 0 is just y. Okay, and then we get 4/3 x plus, and then 4 times 2 is 8. So that gives us 8 over 3. If we can simplify 4/3 or 8/3, we simplify it. But since we don't, it just stays like that. That's it. So we get y equals 4 over 3x plus 8 over 3. So it says do questions 2 and 3 and then answer the questions. Why is having a point slope formula helpful? Okay, so it is helpful because all we need is a point and a slope. And for example, on this graph that was given to us, we couldn't tell what the y-intercept was. Okay, it was kind of vague, and as a matter of fact, you can see it's 8 over 3, which is a fraction. So you can't see the exact number. So let's see here. Here's another one. Again, we can't see where that y-intercept is. It looks like it's about halfway through, but we're not 100% sure. So we're going to go ahead and find 2 points. So here's one point here. And here's another point right here. Okay, so for our point, let's go ahead and choose 3, -4, 3, -4. This is my x1, this is my y1. I'm going to go ahead and count my slope. My graphs are counting by 1, so I'm good. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So because it went down 6, it's going to be negative 6. And then this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our slope is negative 6 over 5. So it says write the equation in point slope form. So we have y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, and so when we plug in, these are the parts that stay the same. Okay, what we're plugging in for is the x1, the y1, and the m. So we said our slope is negative 6 over 5. And then our point we said is 3, negative 4. So my x is 3, so it'll be x minus 3. And this one's a negative 4. Okay, so you do have to be very careful when you're plugging it into the formula. These two negatives are going to end up making a positive, so it's going to be y plus 4 equals negative 6 over 5. We're actually going to distribute it, so negative 6 over 5 times x. And we're going to multiply negative 6 times negative 3. That gives me positive 18 over 5. Okay. Then from there, this 4, we're going to have to move it to the other side, and we do that by subtracting. This cancels, and we get y equals negative 6 over 5x. And then this is going to give me, let's go ahead and take out our calculator. So let's see. I'm going to show you guys how to put in your calculator. Okay, so we're going to be doing 18 over 5 minus 4. So I'm going to go ahead and take out my calculator page. I'm going to press Control Divide so that I get the fraction. And then I have 18 over 5, and we are subtracting 4. Okay, I hit Enter, and it gives me negative 2 over 5. And that's what I'm going to put here, negative 2 over 5. Okay, and that's it. That's going to be our equation in slope-intercept form. Oh, whoops. Okay, the next one. So let's go ahead and pick any point on the graph. Okay, I like to pick, if it's an option, I do like to pick this one because it does come out to less work when we're solving for it. So these are the 2 points that I'm going to pick. Okay, my slope, I'm going to count my rise over my run. So 1, 2, 3. And then the run is 1, 2, 3, 4. So 3 over 4. Okay, and then the point that I picked was 5, 0, which is my x1 and my y1. So we're going to write the equation in slope-intercept form. So it's going to be y minus y1. I'm going to leave that blank. Equals m times x minus x1. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and plug them in. So my y value is 0, my x value is 5, and my slope is 3 over 4. Okay, y minus 0 is just y, and then I'm going to distribute the 3/4 to each one. Okay, so we distribute it to each one. It'll be 3 over 4x minus 3 times 5 gives us 15, so 15 over 4. And that's it. So here it says write the equation in slope-intercept form. I already just did that. I'm just going to put a little arrow. Okay. So, do questions 2 and 3 and answer the question, why is having the point slope formula helpful? Well, it's helpful when you cannot find an exact value for y. Okay, the y-intercept. Okay, so let's continue. So it says use the tables of linear functions below to write the equations of the lines in both slope-intercept form and point-slope form. Although you can use any point in the table to write your equation in point-slope form, use the highlighted point if your teacher prefers. Okay, so because they give us 2 points in order for us to find the slope, remember, we can find the slope from 2 points. Here's a formula. I'm going to write it here at the top. It's going to be y2 minus y1. So we subtract our y values divided by x2 minus x1. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do here. Okay, this is going to be my, and since they want us to use this 0.26, the highlighted one, I'm going to make this my x1, my y1, my x2, and my y2. So to find my slope, I'm going to go ahead and subtract my y values, so 6 minus 4 on top, and on the bottom I subtract my x values, 2 minus 1. 6 minus 4 gives me 2, and 2 minus 1 gives me 1, and 2 divided by 1 just gives me 2. Okay, so now we're going to plug it into our slope formula. So it's going to be y minus, and then equals our m times x minus our x1. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and plug those in. Remember, this is my x value, this is my y value. I know we used it as x2, y2 on our slope formula, but for this formula, we're using the 6 and the 2 here, and then our slope is 2. Okay, so we go ahead and distribute this 2 to each one, and we get y minus 6 equals 2x minus 4. Okay, then to solve for y, we get the y by itself by adding the 6, so plus 6 plus 6, so negative 4 plus 6 gives us 2, positive 2. So that is my slope-intercept form. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice another one. So this time they want us to use negative 1, 3 as our point. Let's go ahead and find our slope. This is going to be our x1, y1, x2, y2. So we're going to subtract our y values on top, so 0 minus a negative 3 divided by 0 minus a negative 1. So remember, when you subtract a negative, it turns into a positive. So on the top we have a 3, and then the bottom we have a 1. So 3 divided by 1 is just 3. Okay, now we can plug it into our slope-intercept form. So here we are going to do y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Just in case you guys forgot the formula. So we do y minus, this equals, this is x minus, and we plug in. So we said our slope is 3. The point that we're going to use is negative 1, negative 3. So my y value is negative 3, and my x value is negative 1. So here 2 negatives make a positive, so that's going to be y plus 3 equals, these 2 negatives make a positive, and we get 3x, and then 3 times 1 gives me a positive 3. Okay, and we have one more step. We need to get the y by itself, so we get rid of this plus 3. So we're going to do the opposite and subtract it. What we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. So we get y equals 3x and then negative 3 minus 3 cancels. It gives us 0, so that's it for that one. Okay, the last example like this. Okay, so they do want us to use a 0.14. We're going to go ahead and, so let's call this x1, y1. We'll call this one x2, y2. So we're going to use it for our slope, 4 minus 4 over 2 minus 1. Now 4 minus 4 gives us 0, and 2 minus 1 is 1. This is going to give us 0. Okay, so we're going to use our point flow form. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So we know that our y1 here, this is our x1, and then that's my slope is 0. So my slope is 0, my y1 is 4, and my x1 is 1. I distribute this one to each one, and I get y minus 4 equals 0 times x is just 0, which ends up being nothing. 0 minus 1 also gives us 0, so I'm just going to put a 0 there because all that ends up being 0. And then we move this 4 to the other side by adding 4. These cancel, and we get y equals 0 plus 4 is 4. Okay. All right, the next part says, name the slope and the point used in the point slope form equation. Okay, so just in case we don't remember our formula, it is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, so then here for slope, we can see that instead of m, they did put a 2, so our slope here is a 2. And then for my point, we have two values. We have our x value and our y value. So if we notice here, the sign stayed the same, and then the y was a 5. So that means this is the 5. Okay. If we look here for my x value, they did change the sign. It went from a positive to a negative. So instead of it being a positive 3, our x value is a negative 3. Okay, the reason for that is when you subtract a negative 3, that's what made it turn into a positive. Okay, so pretty much all you have to remember is it is the opposite sign. So if it's minus 5, that means it's going to be a positive 5 in your point, and if it's plus 3, that means it's going to be a negative 3 as a point. So if we look at the next one, this is going to be y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. This is a formula. Okay, the easiest thing is to find the slope. The slope is m, which is negative 3. Okay, here we do need an x and a y value for a point. Okay, so if we notice on our x value, it says minus x, and here they did minus 4, so that means that our x value is 4. Here, it should be minus y1, but it says plus 3, so that means it should be the opposite sign of 3. So that means it's going to be negative 3. Okay, let's go ahead and try the next one. This is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, so our slope is m, which is 2/3. And then we have minus 6 here, and this is minus y1, so that means that our y value should be 6. Okay. Here they added the 6 instead of subtracting the x value, so then that means it needs to be the opposite sign, which is negative 6. Okay, for our x value. And that's it. Okay, a little bit more practice. This time I'm not going to write the equation down again. Okay, when we're looking at this, we're going to know that this one is a slope, which is negative 3 over 4. Okay, and then we also know that these signs should be subtraction. So if they're not subtraction, that means that it's going to be the opposite sign. So here, it's going to be minus 8 is our x value, because this is my x1. And then this is my y1, which is a plus 7, but in the formula it should be minus. So that means that it's opposite sign, negative 7. Okay, I look at this next one. Now this time there's no number here in the front, which is kind of strange, but remember, if there's no number in the front, that means it's an invisible one. And then here I have plus 8 and minus 5. So this minus 5, that's good. That means that the x value is 5. But this one, it's plus 8. So that means that my y value is minus 8. Okay. And the last one. Whoops. So here, if we look for our slope, this one's going to be my slope, 1 over 5. 1 over 5. And then my point. So my point, remember this is my x value, -2. It does have the minus sign, so it's going to be 2. This one also has a minus sign, so that means my my y value is going to be 1. So remember, it's just the opposite sign. Okay? Let me plug in my computer real quick before it ends up dying. Oh no. Okay. Let's go ahead and continue. So it says use a point slope formula to write the equation in slope-intercept form. So here it says write an equation of the line that is parallel. What? You know what? We're going to skip this part because we haven't done parallel and perpendicular lines. That's another lesson. That's weird. Okay. So application with point slope. Wait a second. That makes me wonder if I downloaded the wrong modeling. Oh, no. Let me just check real quick. Modeling, assignment. No, I think it's good. Okay, just making sure. So it says DV Cabs charges its customers a set fee and then $1.20 per mile. Okay. You paid $19 for the taxi to take you 14 miles downtown. Identify the rate, write the equation in point slope form, and then solve for y to write the equation in slope-intercept form. Okay. So here, it tells us that we pay $1.20 per mile. So that is going to be our rate because it is per mile. So 120, that's actually like our rate, which we also know is our slope. So I'm going to put here m equals 1.20. Okay. And then it says you paid $19 for the taxi to take you 14 miles downtown. Okay. So in this equation, we have two things. We have our miles and we have our total. So the miles is going to be our x and our total is 19 because our total depends on how many miles we go. So that is going to be our two things that we're going to need. So I'm going to write it in point slope form. So it's going to be y minus or y1 equals m times x minus our x1. Okay. So here I'm just going to plug in my information. Now 19 is my y1, m is $1.20, and 19 is our x1. It says solve for y to write the equation in slope-intercept form. So we are going to distribute the 1.2 times each one. And we get y minus 19 equals 1.20x. And then I'm going to go ahead and multiply 1.2 times 19. 1.2 times 19. That gives me 22.8. And then our last step is to add the 19 to both sides. So that cancels, and we get y equals 1.2, and then 22.8 plus the 19, and it's actually negative 22.8, and that is going to give me negative 3.8. Oh, I need to move this. And that's it. All right. So it says, create a table of values and graph your line. Label your x and y axis. Okay, so here, this bottom part is going to be our distance in miles. Okay, so, oh, whoops. Because that was our x value, so it's going to be our distance in miles. So I'm going to put MI. Okay, and then this one is going to be the total. And this is in dollars. Okay. And then it says create a table of values and graph your line. So if I plugged in 0, why does this feel weird? Oh, I know. Sorry, guys. This is a 14. I was like, something is strange here. This is a 14 because that was my x value. But then 1.2 times 14 is 16.8. That's 16.8. So then I add 19 to that. That gives me 2.2. And it's actually a positive 2.2 plus 2.2. Okay. Now that I fixed that, we can go ahead and plug those in. So 1.2 times 0 is 0 plus 2.2, which is $2.20. And then we plug in 2, so 2 times 1.2. And then we add 2.2. So you can go through it, or we can put it in our calculator and get the table. Okay. And once we get the table, oh, sorry, that's kind of messy. That's $4.60. 4 times 1.2 plus 2.2 gives me 7. 6 times 1.2 plus 2.2 gives me 9.4. This will be 11.8. 13. And this is 14.2. So then it says, what does the dependent quantity represent? Remember, the dependent is your y value. Just in case you don't remember, we have x and y. They went to the doctor, that stands for domain and range, and they needed their ID. So domain is your independent, and then your range is your dependent. In this case, it's the total cost in dollars. Okay, what does the independent variable represent? It represents miles. And then what is a rate of change and what does it represent? So the rate of change is 1.2, which is dollars per mile. Okay, so it says explain the meaning of the relative to miles in cost. Okay, so let me go ahead and graph this real quick. We have 0 and 2.2, so it's about right here. and then 2 and 4.6, 4 and 7, oh, they skip 5, so 6 and 9.4. They skip 7, 8 and 11.8, 9 and 13, and then 10 and 14.2. And so there's our line. And so it says find f of 9. So this is saying when x is equal to 9, what is our y value? So when x is equal to 9, what is our y value here? Okay, now we can take that from the table. When x is equal to 9, our y value is 13. So it says explain the meaning of the relative to miles to cost. So this is after I don't know why it's not writing. After 9 miles, the cost will be $13. The next one says find x when f of x is equal to 10. So this is going backwards, okay? So this is saying when our y value is 10. So here's our y value is 10. What is our x value? So it looks about 6, but 6 is 9.4, so maybe 7. Let's see. If not, we might have to guesstimate 7 times 1.2 plus 2.2. 7 is 10.6. Okay, so I guess we'll have to guesstimate and we'll go ahead and leave it like that and say 7. So find x when f of x is equal to 10. Explain the reasoning. So after 7 miles, the cost was $10. Okay, the next one says, what is a y-intercept and explain the meaning. So the y-intercept is 2.2. And so the cost to start is 2.2. Is this data discrete or continuous? It's going to be continuous because the money keeps going, the miles keep going. You don't have to cut those into those don't have to stay as whole numbers. Okay. And then the last question says find the domain and range for 14 miles. For 14 miles, so here's 14 miles. So then the highest that it goes at 14 miles is about right here. But I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. So we do 14 times 1.2 plus 2.2. Okay, so we plug it into the formula. And it gives me 19. Okay, so that means if we're finding the range for 14 miles, it's going to be any number between 0 and 14 on our x value, less than or equal to, less than or equal to. For our range, it's going to be between 0, and when I plugged it in, I got 19. That means that our cost is going to be up to $19. And that's it. So you guys have your assignment. Let me go ahead and check out the assignment real quick because I did skip that section. So let me see if your assignment has any problems like that so that you guys are able to skip it as well. Yeah, so you guys can go ahead and skip 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Okay, and I'll go ahead and get back to it another time. I don't think right now is appropriate. So you guys will do the rest of the assignment, including the last page. But yeah, go ahead and skip those ones, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And that's it. Thank you guys. Bye.